You have probably never seen this, not because it's hidden, but because it's everywhere. And things that are everywhere become invisible. Somewhere behind your bank, your airline ticket, your electricity bill, and the paycheck that lands in your account every month, there's a very good chance the same company is quietly running the machinery. It's called SAP, and today we are going to open it up and look at every single piece. Here's the big idea for the next 15 minutes. SAP is not one product. Think of it as the operating system of a business. The way Windows or Android sits underneath every app on your phone, SAP sits underneath the actual operations of some of the biggest companies on earth. In India alone, names like Reliance, Tata Motors, and ITC run huge parts of their business on it. And right now, that operating system is going through the two biggest upgrades in its 50-year history at the same time. By the end of this video, you're going to see the whole map and you'll know exactly which piece of it you could actually build a career on. Let's start at the beginning, because the shape of the origin explains a lot of what SAP still looks like today. Back in 1972, 5 engineers in Germany started building software that could handle a business's core processes in real time, instead of overnight batch jobs. That became R1, then R2, and in 1992, R3. R3 is the one that mattered. It was built for the client-server model, the architecture everyone was moving to at the time. And it's the product that made SAP the default choice for running a large company. Everything you're about to see is a descendant of that one decision. For the next 2 decades, the product running inside most large companies was what became known as ECC, SAP's classic ERP. If you've ever heard someone at work say, "We're still on ECC," this is what they mean. It handles the absolute core of a business: finance, procurement, manufacturing, and sales. And it doesn't care which database sits underneath it. Oracle, IBM's DB2, whatever the company already had, ECC would run on it. In our operating system picture, it's the kernel, the one piece everything else ultimately depends on. And it's still running inside an enormous number of businesses today. Then in 2011, SAP made a genuinely strange bet. Normal databases are built for one of two jobs: either running the business day to day, which we call transactions, or analyzing that business afterward, which we call analytics. Usually you need 2 separate systems for that. SAP built HANA to do both at once, entirely in memory, which at the time sounded almost reckless. Memory is fast but expensive, disks are slow but cheap. SAP bet that memory would get cheap enough, fast enough, that running everything in it would just become normal. That bet is the reason every product you're about to see even exists. HANA is the database underneath almost all of it now. 4 years later, in 2015, SAP rebuilt its core ERP from scratch on top of HANA and called it S4HANA. This is the important one. S4HANA is the current generation kernel, the one every company running the older ECC is now being pushed toward. It simplified how the underlying data is structured, so reports that used to take hours now happen instantly. And it came with a completely redesigned interface called Fiori, built to actually look like something from this decade. If ECC was the operating system's first major version, S4HANA is the one everyone's being told to upgrade to. Here's why all of this isn't just history. It's this decade's most urgent problem for anyone working in SAP. SAP has set an actual end date for supporting that older ECC system. Mainstream support runs out at the end of 2027. There's a paid extension available after that, but only until the end of 2030. So every company still running the old kernel has a real clock ticking. And that clock is the single biggest reason the entire SAP world is in motion right now, migrating and hiring at the same time. So if you're moving off the old system, where do you actually land? There are broadly 3 paths. You can run S4HANA on-premise in your own data center with full control. You can move to a private cloud version, a managed path SAP calls RISE, where SAP hosts and runs it for you, but you keep most of your customization. Or if you're starting closer to a clean slate, there's a faster public cloud path called Grow. which trades some customization for speed and standardization. Same kernel, three very different ways of owning it. And if you're not a giant enterprise at all, SAP has a separate line for smaller businesses. 2. Mainly SAP Business One with Business by Design as an older cloud option in that same space. Different scale, but the same underlying philosophy. One connected system running the whole business. Let's stop moving through time and look at what all of this adds up to right now as one connected stack. At the bottom, the kernel we just covered, and directly on top of it sits the layer most people outside SAP have never heard of, but that every one of the next few scenes lives inside. It's called BTP, the Business Technology Platform. Think of it as the operating system's own services layer, the stuff that lets you build, connect, and extend without ever touching the kernel underneath. BTP itself breaks into a few jobs. There's app development and automation, mostly done through something called SAP Build, which covers everything from no-code app building to full custom code in ABAP, or in modern languages like Node and Java. There's data and analytics, the home for HANA Cloud, and since 2025, a single unifying layer called Business Data Cloud. There's integration for wiring SAP and non-SAP systems together. And then there's the one this whole channel is about, AI. Inside BTP, that's called the AI Foundation. And it's where Joule, SAP's AI Copilot, actually lives. One layer up from BTP sits everything a business actually clicks into every day. The installed applications, in our analogy. SuccessFactors runs HR, hiring, performance, and payroll. Ariba runs procurement and sourcing. Concur handles travel and expense. And there's a whole customer-facing suite for sales, service, and online commerce. Each of these is its own product with its own specialists. And each one increasingly has AI built directly into it, which we'll get to in a minute. Sitting alongside all of this and feeding every part of it is SAP's data layer. In February 2025, SAP launched something called Business Data Cloud, a single managed layer that pulls together its older data tools, DataSphere and Analytics Cloud into one place. And in the same announcement, SAP struck a pretty big partnership with Databricks, building it directly into that data layer so SAP data and Databricks data can move between the two without being copied. This is the plumbing, and it matters here because it's exactly what SAP's AI is about to be trained to read from. Which brings us to the top of the stack, the layer everyone's suddenly talking about. SAP's AI isn't a separate chatbot bolted onto the side. It shows up in three different ways. There's embedded AI, small intelligent features already sitting inside the apps you just saw. There's generative AI, centered on Joule, SAP's Copilot, which can answer questions in plain language across the entire system. And there's agentic AI, AI that doesn't just answer you, but can actually go and do something inside guardrails, with a human able to step in when it matters. All three sit directly on top of everything we've built up so far, which is exactly why the map mattered before we got here. And here's the one idea worth remembering. Above all the product names, generic AI answers from whatever it read on the general internet. SAP's AI is built to answer from your actual business data. Your purchase orders, your employee records, your ledger. That difference has a name, grounding, and it's a big part of why this channel exists. Every episode from here on is really about that one word, applied to a different corner of this map. So with the whole map in front of you, here's the practical question. Where would you actually go build a career in this? Every layer we just covered has its own specialists. If you like configuring how a business actually runs, the functional streams, finance, materials management, sales, and HR sit right at the kernel, and they're still the largest, most in-demand track in the entire SAP world. If you'd rather build, then the technical streams, ABAP, Fiori, and development on BTP are about writing the software instead of configuring it. Prefer a single specialized product? SuccessFactors, Ariba, and the rest of the line of business apps are their own full-time careers. Like working with data, BW, DataSphere, and Business Data Cloud are their own world. And if you want to be early to where things are heading, then the fastest growing streams, BTP as a platform skill, S4 HANA migration work riding that 2027 deadline, and SAP's AI stack itself are where the ecosystem is pouring in right now. India in particular is one of the largest hubs on earth for SAP delivery work. So this really isn't a small question for a huge number of people watching this. So that's the whole thing, top to bottom. A kernel that's been rebuilt twice, a services layer most people never see, a row of specialized applications running the actual business, and a data layer quietly getting unified. And right on top of all of it, an AI layer that can now read and act on everything underneath it, grounded in your real data, not guessing. That's SAP in 2026 as one connected system. And starting next episode, we are going to climb back up to that top layer and actually open it up. Starting with the thing everyone's asking about first. What is Joule really and what does it actually do? If this is the kind of channel you want in your feed, then subscribing genuinely helps.